Today you're listening to ALPA Session 4, focused on facilitating personal growth and change. This presentation will focus on the core concepts of life planning that you can use as an advocacy advocate for yourself and with your clients. I'm Mary Radu, a certified professional coach who works with midlife individuals and couples. In my leadership roles, I'm the founder and general chairperson for the Northern California Life Planning Network, as well as the vice president for the National Life Planning Network, a diverse community of professionals helping people navigate the second half of life. Through the Life Planning Network, Jan Hively and I have spearheaded the development of this ALPA program in which you are currently participating. So let's take a look at today's topics. We'll begin by reviewing why life planning advocacy is important, along with a background on what life planning is. Next, we'll look at what the roles and responsibilities, along with the skills, are for an advocate practitioner. Then I'll walk you through a 5-step planning process so you can see what's involved and begin to understand where this intersects with your past experience and your client interactions. And finally, you'll hear a role modeling of the 5-step process and then have time to try out the process with a partner. So first, let's look at why we do life planning advocacy. Life to the last breath is about change, and life planning offers tools to manage the changes and the transitions that are associated with them. Our life experience shows us that external conditions around us, as well as our internal emotions and physical body, are not static. Over time, our relationships with others change and sometimes go away, and also our bodies changes, and we have needs that are different from when we were children or younger adults. When we accept that much of human life involves change, we can focus on increasing our skills that allow us to adapt in the best possible way. So life planning helps us find ways of adapting. Life planning focuses us on providing guidance to navigate the changes and to be proactive about leading the change rather than reacting to changes after they happen. Planning is essential for shaping our sense of purpose and identity, for maximizing our self-determination and self-sufficiency, for effectively resolving problems, for maintaining a healthy body and lifestyle, for making decisions that integrate all parts of our lives. Life planning comes out of a model of health, where each person is assumed to have the potential to be creative and be actively engaged throughout their lives. Positive psychology provides tools to discover and promote the factors that allow individuals and communities to thrive. Many of its techniques are used in life planning, including goal theory and learned optimism. As we learned in Session 1, medical research on the effects of aging also support our understanding of the availability of creativity and brain elasticity that contribute to our ability to adapt and live from our potential. And finally, in a health model, we focus on maintaining wellness. Personal wellness is multidimensional. Being well demands that we actively exercise our bodies and brains on the physical, mental, social, emotional, vocational, and spiritual levels. Wellness is also impacted by elements often outside of the individual's span of control, such as the environment and economic factors. Let me give you an environmental example. If we lived in a snowy, wintry climate, our physical exercise may be limited to indoor activities for the winter months if we have physical limitations. Or, on the economic side, our budgets will have an impact on our access to medical care to meet our physical and mental health needs. As each of us know, we humans are complex beings with many needs and desires, none of which can be considered in a vacuum. If you think about any of the areas of life listed on this slide, you know that they're interrelated. When we change something in one of these areas of our lives, it has an impact on other areas. Therefore, in life planning, it's important to consider the whole person with whom we're working. For instance, if you were discussing recreation options with a client, her ability to pay for activities will play a role in what options will be practical. By the time we reach midlife, each of us has extensive experience facing changes that have occurred throughout our lives. We each have experience successfully making changes as well as handling other changes less well. In life planning, we believe that understanding the process of change can help us manage it better. From the field of change management, we have evidence that there are very specific stages that occur whenever a major life change or transition from one state to another arises. William Bridges offers one well-recognized model to describe the stages of transition. In his book entitled Transitions, he identifies three major stages: endings, neutral zone, and new beginnings. The first stage is endings. Every transition begins with an ending, such as the loss of a spouse or a friend, the loss of a physical ability that limits activities we once carried out, the endings of a job or a career, or a move from a home of one's own to a senior community. This stage includes the emotional process of having to let go of what is no longer there for us. The second stage is called the neutral zone. This stage might be better named as the in-between time. As in the fall and winter seasons of the year, the earth appears to be fallow. This is a time when activity seems to stop or slow down, when we may be confused about where we're going and lack clear direction to what's next. During this time, a person can feel disconnected from other people and things in the past, can feel a lack of comfortable routine, and feel emotionally unconnected with the present. It's a disorienting time of not knowing, and it's the time when there is reorientation going on. The final stage is new beginnings. This is the time when gradually new thoughts germinate and lead to new activities. The creative thoughts and options that emerge are greatly affected by the experience during the earlier fallow period with its associated introspection, when we take time to listen to internal desires. In this new beginnings phase, we begin to move toward external signs that point to the future direction where new stability and more predictable patterns will begin to form. From my 10+ years experience working with people going through changes, I've developed a description of what happens in successful transitions. The three elements to making successful changes are introspection into who we are and what we want, discovery and exploration of the options, and finally, committed action. All three steps are important. When one step is skipped, it can lead to disappointment in self. Either we find that we weren't really clear about what's important to us, we weren't really committed to the action, or we find that the external situation wasn't a good fit for our needs and desires. So what is life planning? Now we're going to examine what life planning is about. We'll focus on the three main elements: thinking in a purposeful way, addressing key questions, and third, expanding responsibility for self. Life planning is thinking in a purposeful way about how you want to live, not assuming that things need to stay the same unless you want them to, opening the door to opportunity, looking at new possibilities that may fit your life now that perhaps didn't before, exploring options and making choices. Let's break this apart. Life planning begins with knowing who you are, your values, your strengths, and motivations, taking stock of your interests, your experiences, and your dreams. It involves looking within yourself. You've seen some of the assessment tools available to you in Session 2, the VIA, Values and Actions, the Signature Strengths Inventory, the Life Patterns worksheet that offers insights into the skills and interests that make up rewarding work. In Session 2, you also tried out the VIP, Vital Involvement practice, that provides feedback on your past experiences in promoting vital involvement with an older adult. A key component of successful life planning is understanding the practical realities of your life and the challenges and obstacles they can create. Such realities might include physical energy level, available finances, physical disabilities, access to transportation. This also involves differentiating between real challenges and obstacles and those that are perceived as obstacles, but might really be a reflection of fears or inaccurate or incomplete information. In Session 3, you tried out a few planning guides that can help you and your clients carry out an economic financial checkup in order to get a realistic picture of finances and clarify what are the real obstacles you or they may face. With an understanding of the realities, we can consider the options and the possible resources. Using this self-knowledge of what's important, along with expanded understanding of options and resources, we can then set priorities, explore options, and make the best choices possible for the given circumstances. In short, life planning helps you to create a roadmap for your life, to take responsibility for and create your best life after 50. As I said earlier, life planning helps you live by design, not by default. When we do purposeful life planning, we can answer the questions: who am I now? Where have I been? Where am I going? How will I get there? And last, if not now, when will I? As we find the answers to these questions, we increase our ability to take self-responsibility and self-manage the circumstances of our life and create the best life possible. We learn what actions we can take that will increase our self-care and maximize our independence now and as we age. These are the essence of self-advocacy. Let's turn our attention next to the roles and skills of the advocate practitioner. First, to be a life planning advocate, you must be a role model based on your own life experience. This means applying these concepts to your own life and experiencing the results that come about through your own life planning and being your own advocate. We practice with our own lives, and then we model and share what we know. Your second primary role is to be a guide mentor, modeling a problem-solving process. So now let's take a look at the core skills used by the life planning advocate. If you're familiar with the coaching field, you will notice that the advocate practitioner relies heavily on the coaching skill set. The first skill is listening. One of the biggest gifts we can offer another human being is to be heard. So as an advocacy practitioner, this begins with listening skills, to set aside everything else and listen to the concerns and needs of your client without personal judgment. A great way for you and your client to know that you are hearing her correctly is to repeat what you hear back to her using her own words, to make sure you heard her correctly and for her to hear herself reflected back. This is how this mirroring might sound. Harriet, what I heard you say is that you are feeling lonely and want to have more social time outside your house, but you don't think you can afford to pay someone to get you there. Did I hear you correctly? Once you've listened to your client's perceived needs and concerns, you're then in a position to help her clarify the issues at hand and define the issue or need. So looking at our situation with Harriet, the mirroring allows the practitioner and Harriet to clarify the issue, confirming that this is the desire or issue the client sees. Another way that you mentor is to shine the light on your client's strengths. This includes acknowledging her attitude. For instance, you might say, "Margaret, I see how much courage it takes for you to talk about your money issues with me." It also means acknowledging actions. For instance, you might say, "Henry, you must be so pleased that you've stayed on your program and not smoked for 2 weeks. I can just imagine how much self-control that took." As part of the problem-solving process, the advocate works with the client to consider the range of resources that might be available to address the situation at hand. As Helen Kivnick said in Session 2, the focus is on building the individual's natural strengths as well as available environmental resources. It starts with encouraging the client's use of her personal abilities to do for herself to the extent possible, and to assist in uncovering the natural support system of friends and family, as well as community resources, to round out a solution to a need or desire. So let's go back to our earlier example of Harriet, who wanted to have more social time outside of her house, but didn't think that she could afford to pay someone to get there. The advocate could brainstorm with Harriet around one event Harriet would like to attend, asking her who else might be interested in going with her. From this discussion, some options of neighborhood friends or family could be identified that she could invite and might be able to provide her transportation. Providing accountability is a seriously important role in helping people make changes in their lives. Research shows that when other people know about our desires and goals and are involved in their accomplishment, we are far more likely to follow through with our efforts. For instance, people who make their New Year's resolutions public are 10 times more likely to succeed than people who do not make a public proclamation. This is taken from Creating Your Best Life, Carolyn Adams Miller and Dr. Michael B. Fritsch. So as you work with your clients and provide accountability, you are modeling for your client a practice they can use for creating their other supportive relationships in their life. In concluding this section on the role of the advocate, I'd like to share a quote that reminds us of the importance of working with the client, encouraging the highest level of problem solving appropriate for the client's life circumstances, whether it be her health, finances, or daily activities. Don Berwick, founder of the Institute for Healthcare Improvements, IHI, previously affiliated with the Harvard School of Public Health, shared this mantra in his essay entitled "Escape Fire." He quoted his wife saying, "Nothing about me without me," after she had been ignored by all of the doctors and nurses who spoke to each other and to her family about her while she was nearby lying in a hospital bed. We all want to be respected and keep our sense of dignity that comes through self-determination. We're going to finish this presentation by reviewing the 5-step planning process defined by the Life Planning Network and described in the book Live Smart After 50, The Expert's Guide to Life Planning for Uncertain Times. The steps include assess, discover possibilities, clarify goals, make changes, and finally, adjust as needed. As you can see in the diagram, these steps move forward from one to the other, but you'll probably find that you need to double back at times to deal with things you didn't expect. This cyclical approach might be needed if something changes that you or your client didn't anticipate, like a family health care issue, a new opportunity, or winning the lottery. Even with planned changes like a relocation to be near grandchildren or leaving a paid position, cycling back through these steps will support the decisions and actions needed to manage the transition. As I walk you through these steps, I will refer you to using these with your clients. However, as a role model, you'll be using this process in your own life plan as well. In the first step of assessment, we work with the client to take a look at both the internal and external elements of the situation at hand. We help build a bridge between the present state and the desired future state the client wants to move towards, and we also build motivation to take action. In carrying out the internal assessment, we are looking to answer some key questions about who this person is and raise awareness of these qualities with the client. Starting in this first assessment step, remember to ask good, open-ended questions, ones that cannot be answered with a yes or no, to help your client articulate their needs and beliefs. This will also ensure that you and your client are in agreement so that you can focus your planning attention in a direction that will best meet the client's need or desire. In life planning language, this is part of building a clear vision of what the client wants and where she wants to go. You'll notice that there is an overlap in this step with the work you did in sessions 2 and 3. Some of the assessment tools that were in those sessions' resources might be useful as part of this step of your work with clients. Consider using some of these assessments directly with your clients when you have the opportunity to work in depth. The result of your discussions should result in your client knowing, who am I? What do I want or need? What are my interests or desires? What are my skills, abilities, and natural strengths that I want to use? What motivates me? In this step, we also assess the external environment to see where our internal needs might fit with what we know or believe to be true in the world around us. We look with the client at what the potential opportunities are, who might play a part with her in getting what she wants. We also consider what perceived or real barriers might be present. Again, here are a few key open-ended questions to keep in mind that can be rephrased to fit your or your client's conversation style. What are the possible opportunities? Perhaps rephrase to say, where might you do this? And if brainstorming would help to open up additional ideas, asking a question, where else might you do this? In looking at the potential opportunities, we can also look at the other people resources that might play a part in the solution. Asking questions about this might sound like, who might help you with this? Or, who might enjoy participating with you in this activity? Do you see how asking open-ended questions invite your client to draw on her natural strengths and knowledge of her community? At this stage, it's also important to identify potential barriers or obstacles that might impede the client from reaching her desired goal. These can be identified by asking, what do you believe are the barriers? Or rephrased, what might get in your way so that we can see if there's a way to get around it. We know that you, as advocate, have life experience and knowledge of your community that might be helpful to your client. Beginning in step 1, look at how you can add to your client's knowledge and problem solving without overstepping her own natural resourcefulness. Take a moment to jot down other key questions that would be helpful to you to use to assess your client's situation. The second step of the planning process is discovering possibilities. Once we've spent time with the client assessing what she wants and what she believes is possible, it's time to begin moving toward making it happen. During discovery, the client has an opportunity to find out what's out there, confirm what real options are available for her, and see how the options available fit her wants and needs. Each of us have numerous experiences in our lives that show us that getting what we want isn't always as easy as going from point A to B. Usually there are many steps in the process, false starts, dead ends, and changes in life circumstances also show up before we find a solution that's right for us. And the bigger the payoff, the more effort and time is usually required. Rather than jump to solutions, in life planning, we encourage a discovery step where we support the client in exploring and testing out where her interests, abilities, and resources fit the circumstances in her world. We find that this step empowers the client to make choices from a fuller understanding of what's realistically possible, and it increases the probability that the solution chosen will fill the need in the best way possible. Let's go back to our client Harriet, who wanted more social time outside her home and wasn't sure she could afford someone to help her get there. During her discovery process, she contacted her neighbor about where she was taking her exercises classes and found out that there were a variety of free and low-cost classes at her community rec center. Her neighbor invited her to visit on her next trip. Harriet also searched the local newspaper and found several other activities of interest which she explored. This stage can be very short or take time in a series of trial and error events. And in the process of discovery, the client finds her way through to a solution that fits as well as possible. Keep in mind that the client may want to jump to a quick solution that might not fit the need immediately. In this stage, the advocate may find it beneficial to encourage further exploration before the client comes to a decision. Sometimes our best teachers come in the form of life lessons that emerge during the process of moving toward what we want. One of the benefits that comes out of the discovery process is the opportunity to confirm or clarify our goals. The reality testing that occurs during our discovery investigations help us confirm or clarify what's really important, both for what the client wants to accomplish and also a new understanding of who they are as a person and what they value. For instance, your client Harriet, who told you that she wants to increase her social time. Through her explorations, it becomes clearer that she wants more than just spending time with others. In the process of looking at the community recreation options available, Harriet finds that cooking classes are available, and she also realizes that she wants to pass on the ethnic dishes she learned from her mother and aunts when she was a child. She realizes that she values sharing her heritage and could do so by teaching her own grandchildren and children at her church how to make the ethnic dishes she learned as a young girl in her native country. So rather than take a class, she talked with the church social director and discussed planning and teaching a class for the children of her church. Clarifying goals requires reflection. Therefore, as advocate, your role includes guiding and supporting your client to take the time to reflect on what she learned from her explorations and discovery activities. Again, you can guide these introspections with open-ended questions like, what did you learn from your investigation? What seems to be working or not working? Does this change what you want? Does this match your style and the way you'd like to go about this activity? How well will this situation take advantage of your interests and the way you want to participate or contribute? As advocate, you have the opportunity to offer your perceptions of what you're hearing for the sake of helping the client become more clearly aligned with what you hear she wants or needs, as well as fitting with the realities of the environment in which it will happen. That can include affirming the good fit you see in specific options that client has identified and restating how they match her needs and desires. It might also mean noting misalignments between an option and your client's stated needs. You might also make suggestions on how the client might adjust her proposed plan to accommodate the realities that you know to be present. Lastly, there may be times when you may want to propose that the client adjust her goals to make them achievable given the realities identified. In this case, further exploration might be suggested to make sure that the client has all the information she needs to move forward with confidence. Once the client's desires and needs are clarified and goals are refined, it's time to focus on taking action to make the change. In step 4, the advocate helps the client move forward by providing support and accountability. So what is your client's plan for moving forward? What are the details? Positive psychology research gives us two useful tools that can increase the probability that the desired change will happen. The first is taking small, incremental steps. The human brain works well when we identify small actions that are manageable to the individual. When we identify incremental steps that are linked, we are able to create a plan that will ultimately result in reaching the desired destination or condition. Start with an open-ended question that draws in the client's natural abilities for making a plan and taking action. Listen for how engaged the client is in taking the action. Pay attention to the emotional tone. Is she excited? Does she seem hesitant? Is she unclear about what to do? If you sense overwhelm, talk through how the steps might be broken down into even more manageable pieces. Ask questions to help the client see what the smaller steps might be. For instance, how might you break that up into multiple steps, and what might be the first thing you can do? The second tool positive psychology offers is the beneficial value of having support. Remember the statistic I mentioned earlier that indicated that accountability increases the probability of success? In discussing the plan with your client, be sure to look at how having companionship or help fits with your client's values and desires, and whether support will keep your client in action. Use open-ended questions to ask the client to look at who might have a common interest in participating in the activities. Alternately, ask who has an interest in the client achieving the goal who can be asked to be an accountability partner, checking in on a frequent and consistent basis to discuss progress and celebrate success. The conversation might sound like this. So Harriet, who might be interested in helping you with your cooking class so that you can have enough energy to instruct the high-energy children that you'll be teaching? Might that person also drive you? What is your plan? What do you need? Who can help? These are the questions that are important at this stage. And finally, we come to step 5, which is making adjustments as needed. Life is constantly changing, and so are our needs and desires. In this final step, the advocate checks back with the client on progress with her goals. It's a time to see how the client has followed through on her identified actions, a time to acknowledge successes, a time to look at how obstacles have been managed, and to look at what now needs attention and adjustment. During this discussion, you and your client have an opportunity to see what habits and practices have contributed to her success, and to point out what has been learned about self-care and self-advocacy in this lifelong change process. If the time is right, you might discuss what else is going on in the client's life that could benefit from some of the same life planning attention to address new needs and desires that may be a new priority in her life. You now have a sense of what's involved in the life planning process. Assess, discover possibilities, clarify goals, make changes, adjust as necessary, and again reassess. This is a continual process that can support you and your clients lifelong. Let's look again at the scenario with our client Harriet. Jan Hively and I will walk through this 5-step process with you in a little bit more depth. And as you listen, look for the stages of the process as well as the skills being used by the advocate. Now it's your turn to try it out. Working with a partner, you will work through a client scenario that your coordinator will give you that will fit your work situation. As you do this, use the ALPA Life Planning Advocacy Skills and Planning Process handout to help you guide yourself through this process and to look at the kinds of skills and the kinds of questions you can use as you work with the client. We hope you enjoy this process and are learning new skills in the meantime.